So I've talked about the Pacers a few times this offseason, and it's been pretty positive most of the time. But Oladipo's injury has me kind of freaked out with this team to the point where I'm starting to talk myself into them perhaps not being that great this upcoming season. I mean, maybe they could be a scary team in the playoffs, but if we're talking standings in the regular season and all that, there's just a few things that have me a little hesitant. The biggest one is Oladipo's health now. They say he's not expected to come back before the end of the year. Well, 2019. He'll be back in like January or something. And so what does that mean? Does it mean we're going to see the real Oladipo in like February? Maybe a little earlier than that, but still, that's a lot of time without their number one dude, and that's tough. I mean, I know last season they stayed alive without Oladipo, but they were a 500 team. You know, they weren't lighting the world on fire without him. So that gives me some hesitance with how good they can be. If we get to Brogdon and TJ, those two have not exactly been models of health throughout their careers either. And to be fair, I wouldn't really be that scared of that if Oladipo was just healthy, but now it's like I gotta really rely on these two dudes who have been hurt a few times to just not get hurt for a whole year while having, at least in the case of Brogdon, more offensive responsibility. That could be a little bit of a thing. Now, even if they're both healthy, we do still have to look at and be like, well, can those two be like good enough to carry this team's offense without Oladipo? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, TJ has scored either high teens or low 20s. I forget exactly what it is. But in terms of like playmaking and all that, there's questions about him, which I usually don't care about if he would have been, I guess, maybe the second or third option with this team. But, you know, with Oladipo out, that goes up one spot, and that's a little scarier. In the case of Brogdon, I mean, he's very efficient. You could say that was mainly from being on the Bucks, although I don't think his efficiency is going to have some big drop-off. But still, he's going to have more pick-and-roll and isolation abilities, or not abilities, responsibilities. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle that to the point of where the Pacers would really like it to be at. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but there's a clear difference between Oladipo and then Malcolm Brogdon as creators and all that, right? And then you throw into that the Turner-Sabonis thing, and I mean, look, I am firmly on team Miles Turner. I think he's one of the best young players in the league, even if it's always not popping out at you with the numbers and that type of thing. I mean, the defense is great, and offensively just keeps getting a little better every season, I would say. But even so, I mean, I made a whole video about Miles and Sabonis. Like, there's reason to believe it might not be great with those two, especially now that Oladipo is going to miss a decent amount of time. But then another part of this is also one of the players they lost this offseason, which I'm not really faulting them for letting him go. The player's Thad Young, but I'm not really faulting them because, like, you have to figure out if the Sabonis-Turner thing works. I get it. But Thad was really good defensively last season. I don't think it was a one-man show with Miles Turner holding up the defense. Now, Miles played a huge part, no doubt, but I do think Thad's impact went under the radar a bit. And while Thad isn't like some three-point shooter or whatever, I do think he still spent a solid amount of time just not standing around the paint, and I fear that could happen with Sabonis and Miles, and that could cause some awkwardness with the offense. Now, even then, Miles has shown signs from three, and he's already a very good mid-range dude. Sabonis has shown some things as a shooter as well, so maybe that would click for one of those guys or both of them this season, but I don't know, you just put all that stuff into a blender and it does start to freak me out a little bit. Now, I would have all of those same fears even if Oladipo was healthy, but if he was ready to go, which I thought he was for most of this offseason, then I'd be able to put most of these fears on the back burner, because I just figure he'd be so good and he'd just make everybody else's job easier, right? Brogdon doesn't have to dribble as much. TJ doesn't have as many opportunities to over-dribble or over-penetrate or whatever. Creates more opportunities for Sabonis and Turner. It all just comes together. And without that, I do have some fears of where this Pacers team is going to end up. I eventually am going to do a East standings thing, and with how close we are to the season, maybe I should get on it pretty quickly. But, Bucks, Sixers, 1-2. I'm really warming up to the idea of Miami as one of the 3 or 4 spots. I guess I would give another one of those to the Celtics. And then, am I predicting that the Pacers are going to be competing with, the Nets and the Raptors for the 5th and 6th spots? I don't know. I mean, if Oladipo was good to go, I think I'd confidently have Indiana as number 3, but yeah. Like I said, I have been talking myself out of the Pacers a bit this offseason. Now, the ways that I could be wrong about all this is maybe Miles Turner goes to another level defensively. I mean, there's reason to believe he can. Guy should have been an all-defense dude last season, and he would have been if you could allow more than one center to get on. He was definitely one of the 5 or 6 best defensive players a year ago. So maybe he can be a one-man show. There's also a chance that I'm overrating how good Thad Young was for them. I mentioned the potential of Sabonis and Turner's shooting to do whatever. And maybe Brogdon and TJ just can make it work as the 2 leading dudes, and perhaps Jeremy Lamb even has a bit of a season without Oladipo there. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not as high on Indiana as I was a month ago, I guess. So yeah,